Hi everyone and welcome back to our YouTube channel. Thank you guys so much for joining me and happy Sunday everyone. So today's video is going to be a 5 months post breast augmentation update. I did initially always say that I didn't want to post too much about my boob job because it's not something that I'm recommending. It's not something that I'm trying to influence on anyone. However, when I was making the decision, these videos and the initial post-operation videos were really useful, and I feel like it's always better to kind of hear it from the horse's mouth, the good things and the bad things, whether I have any regrets, how I'm feeling about it, all that kind of stuff, because surgeons can obviously sell you this dream. However, hearing from someone's personal actual experience is really beneficial. So I thought I would do an update with you guys. I did ask you all for some questions on Instagram as well. First thing I want to say is a lot of the questions I have already answered in my initial video. So I did a video, I think it's titled I had a boob job. I will link it in the description box, but that answers a lot of your questions about size, about cost, about initial pain, everything like that. This is going to go into more detail about how I'm kind of feeling going back to training, getting back into the gym, getting back into shape post my boob job, all of those kind of things. Also, if I have any regrets, how I'm feeling, do I still like my boobs? Who knows? We're gonna be unpacking all of that in this video. Also, quick sidebar, I did have my hair dyed as well this week. I keep looking in the viewfinder and I'm like, who is she? I have basically gone blonde now. I don't know if I would call myself a blonde, but I mean, it's basically there, isn't it? I don't really know what else I could do. My hairdresser was like, do you think you're gonna go blonder? And I was like, can I go blonder? Also, probably not, because my hair is severely damaged. But that is another story for another day. Without further ado, let's jump into the video. So one of the first questions from you guys was basically how do I feel? Do I have any regrets? Do I like my boobs? How do I feel with these things in my body, essentially? And let me be honest with you. I'm going to tell you that I've been through a wave of emotions with my boob job. I have never at any point hated them or regretted my decision. However, initially returning back to the gym, I did question whether I had made the right decision, in terms of the fact that I don't think I understood how much I valued the gym and being able to move my body as easy as I did before my boob job. Now, 5 months on, I am fine. I can move completely freely. I'm completely back to my normal exercise regime. We'll go into that in more detail. But I think initially I underestimated how much I would miss going to the gym and going as full throttle as I did, which in turn I do think kind of caused a slight bit of resentment. Not in the way that they looked. It was so weird. When I was outside of the gym, I loved them. But when I was in the gym for the first 2 or 3 months, I really kind of wish that I could just take them out and put them back in after the gym. However, now they are fully settled. I feel fully normal. I have full range of movement back and I absolutely love them. I think the love has also come from going on holiday as well, because the main kind of catalyst for me wanting a boob job was actually one of the points on my holiday last year. When I was on holiday, I was in a bikini. I was with Joe, my bikini top kept riding up because I just didn't have anything holding it in place, and we took some photos, and honestly I just felt really insecure about my boobs at that point. And to feel that way last year and then to go on holiday this year and have this new flood of confidence was absolutely amazing, and I just feel so good in my body. I feel like it's given me the shape that I always wanted. I feel really good about my decision. It's definitely something that if I had to go back and do all over again, even as hard as I found the initial recovery, I would 100% go back and do it all over again. Another thing that a lot of people asked was, would you go any bigger? Guys, the boob greed is real. The size I am now, I would go as far as to say is perfect for me. I think it fits my body shape. They don't get in the way too much. I feel comfortable with them. I feel like it's a very natural looking shape for me, and everybody that's seen my boobs, whether that's my friends in real life or in a bra or anything like that, everybody has said that they look natural because they don't look too big. However, there is always that greed of being what if they were a little bit bigger? I could maybe do an extra cup size, which is funny because I was initially gonna go bigger, and it was only the month before my surgery I actually chose to have a reduced size. But that's just me being greedy. The size I've gone for is definitely the size that I should have gone for, and I am really, really happy with it. So no, I don't think I would go any bigger. The next obvious question that came from a lot of people was like, how do they feel? How do they look 5 months on? How's your scarring? So one thing I will say that kind of like makes me not laugh a little bit, but when I look back at the initial video that I did, I was wearing like a bralette. I feel like in that video, you can see that they're very fresh in the terms of the way that like they're not very settled. I'll pop the photo in here, but I feel like you can see there's like a bit of a gap between my boobs, and you can kind of see the like initial implant. And I think at that point I was like, they feel really settled. And like now looking back, I'm like, no, I genuinely think it will still take a while for them to fully settle. I think people say it can take up to like a year, but from that initial video, which is like a month on to now, they're definitely a lot more settled. They definitely feel a lot fluffier. I think at that point they were still quite like stiff up here, but they feel so much more settled now. The scarring has definitely faded. A lot of people were like, do you still have scarring? So yeah, it's obviously only 6 months on initially. I think scarring is probably still gonna be there for like quite a long time. In my head, I was always gonna have scars. That was kind of like a bit of a sacrifice I had to make, but I have seen some girls saying how they literally have next to no scarring. So I am using like moisturizer, scarring cream and bio oil on them all the time, so hopefully they will continue to fade. But I think from going on holiday and things like that, like they don't look as obvious as they did before. Obviously when they were fresh, they were like very white scars, but now they've kind of blended into like my body color. But yeah, they're definitely a lot more faded. In terms of like feeling, they definitely feel a lot more settled as well. So when I was saying earlier, like they were initially obviously quite hard, they don't feel very hard anymore, which is really, really nice. Sensation wise, they feel absolutely normal. One thing I will note was that for probably about 3 months, I had quite a lot of like hypersensitivity like under here, which almost kind of like went in between like numbness and being quite sensitive to touch. Like it just felt a bit strange to touch, if that makes sense. But that's completely back to normal now. Like even if I like push them or anything like that, you can't feel any implants. I feel like they're definitely settling a lot more. They probably still will drop a tiny bit, but I guess I just won't know that until a year's time. But everybody's kind of like dropping and fluffing process is very different. So one thing I will say is don't compare yours to anyone else's on the internet, because everybody takes it at their own pace, and your body will probably take a different time frame to heal than somebody else's. Now we lead on to the main frame of questioning. Obviously I think because of my job and stuff, a lot of people were wondering about the gym. So people were wondering like how they feel in the gym now. Is there anything I can't do? So the only thing that I will tell you to kind of like maybe be wary of is just going back and training arms. I did talk about getting back to training properly in my initial video, but I think it took me around 8 weeks to kind of get back to training at like my full potential, but that didn't include arms. I think to get training arms back properly, I'm not gonna lie, it probably was more like 8 to 10 weeks, or maybe even like 10 to 12 to feel fully comfortable moving the weights at a good kind of like rate and normal like pace and things like that, if that makes sense. But that was purely because I basically wanted to give my body as much time to heal as possible. I did actually go back to the gym after about week 8 and try and train arms. And I just remember thinking like, this isn't worth it. Like what if I displace something? What if I move something? It didn't feel 100% comfortable at that point. So I thought I'd actually rather wait and lose a little bit of arm shape and a little bit of arm gains and have my boobs settle in like the perfect way, rather than to go back to the gym and train too hard too soon and kind of like move anything or displace anything or like shape anything. In terms of training now, I am fully back to training. So obviously this is 5 months. I can train exactly as I used to. I have no discomfort in the gym. They feel just like normal. The only thing that I will say is different, and I have myself to blame for this. So before my boob job, I basically went on a big like press up journey, and I was like, because I know I'm not gonna be able to do them for a while, I'm gonna train myself to do press ups for the first time ever. And I got like obsessed with doing them because I could finally do them, and they make you feel so strong. That is one thing that I've never been able to really get back. I still can't do a press up. Bearing in mind also, can I just say, like, I'm not really trying very hard. It's not something I'm really pushing for, because initially the movement feels very strange, because obviously that is stretching out and using all of your chest muscles, which for mine, like, they haven't been used for a very long time. So I did actually go back to the gym and start training them again the other day. I was having to do it on my knees and they were very, very hard. But then the next day I could definitely feel it all across my chest. It was like the muscles have been woken up and they've been asleep for a very long time. So that is kind of the one area that I've personally like struggled to kind of get back into, is purely press ups. But I think it is something that if I keep it up and I do keep trying, I will be able to get them back within 4 or 5 weeks. So following on from that question, a lot of people are asking, did your time off the gym affect you and affect your progress? So I think one thing to kind of make note if you are having a boob job is initially the bloating. That for me was something that took quite a while to subside. I don't know whether that's not normal or normal. I've seen very different things. I've heard some people get over their bloating within a week. Mine genuinely took about 5 or 6 weeks for my body to feel like it returned back to normal. Obviously, my activity level over my recovery period dropped. I went from doing 10,000 steps and working out 5 times a week and doing cardio like 3 times a week to doing nothing. So I do feel like I noticed a slight impact on my body. But saying that, going back to the gym, I think it only took about like 2 to 3 weeks for me to almost feel like my body bounced back. Whether a lot of that is just kind of like mental, I don't know, but I do remember feeling like when I was going back to the gym, I just kind of felt like my body looked like it almost like lost it a little bit because I hadn't trained my muscles. I remember just thinking like my muscles are just asleep, and then after 3 weeks it did kind of feel like everything sort of like snapped back into place, which was probably a lot down to muscle memory, getting back on my walking game, doing my steps every day, getting a little bit of cardio back in, and just lifting some weights again. But I did feel like that initial period, I did notice a bit of a difference. The one area I did actually notice quite a big difference in was my arms. For me to build any form of arm muscle took me months. My upper body does not hold weight at all. I think that's why I ended up having a boob job. If I hold weight, it's on my lower stomach and my thighs and my bum. It's not my arms. My arms are like fairly skinny, little noodly arms. That's what I always call them. So I actually did work really, really hard over the winter and beginning of the year to build up a bit of muscle in them. And I started to kind of like see quite good definition. Even when my arms weren't like flexing, there was a bit of like definition and shape to them. That is something that unfortunately did go over the period of me not training arms. It did suck and it was annoying, but again, that is a sacrifice that I was willing to make to have the boob job. A lot of people did also wonder like when I finally felt kind of back to lifting the weights that I was usually lifting normally. I think after the recovery period and then the period of me kind of getting back into the gym and building up my strength, I would say it was probably around 12 weeks. That does sound like a really long time, but that was only really 4 weeks properly back in the gym working on my lifts. And it's one of these things like, it's a big surgery. You have to take into account there is going to be a recovery period. If you're really into the gym, unfortunately, you're just going to have to make a decision at that moment of what is more important to you. Do you really want to go ahead and have this boob job and have to potentially take a small step back in your fitness journey? Not even really a step back, but almost like a pause on your fitness journey. Or would you rather carry on with your fitness journey and keep pushing? One thing a lot of people do ask me is like, how did you know it was the right time in your fitness journey? And the answer to that question is that there was never a right time. I struggled so hard with finding the perfect 6 weeks where it was a good in-between dieting or gaining weight and losing weight and all of that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, I just had to sit down and be like, do I really want to do this? Because if I do, I just need to do it. As long as it aligns with kind of like my work and my jobs and my holidays and things like that. Those are the main things that are important. My fitness journey is always there. And like I always say, a fitness journey isn't linear. There's going to be little bumps and little drops and little highs along the way. And this is just one of those things. But it's a small period of time in the grand scheme of things. One thing I do definitely want to go into in this video is actually to talk about running. So prior to my boob job, I remember kind of feeling this little itch of like wanting to go running and thinking like, well, I'm gonna have this boob job and that's probably gonna take that option away from me because I'm sure it's not gonna be very comfortable to run with fake boobs because they're gonna be a bit heavier. In terms of my running progress, since before my boob job, it is currently the best it has ever been. Having a breast augmentation has not affected that at all. The only difference I would say that is made to my fitness journey and to my running journey and all of those kind of things is the fact that I do now have to wear high impact sports bras, and that is something that I've realized is very, very important. Number one, because you should to support the implants anyway, but number two, because when you have bigger boobs, I'm sure a lot of girls that have bigger boobs will know this already, it does ache a bit. If you go for a run or if you go to the gym and they end up jiggling about, you do get a bit of a sore back and a bit of a sore chest. So wearing a high impact sports bra is definitely very important. I'm actually gonna pop the ones that I wear in the description box. They are from Gymshark. They are fairly expensive. I think they're around £40 per sports bra, but they are the best ones. I now never go for any other sports bras. If I'm weight training, it's not as important and I can kind of wear whatever I want, but if I'm running, I have to have one of these on, otherwise I do get boob pain, and it does feel slightly uncomfortable when I start to run as well, because I personally just hate that feeling of anything like jiggling around. I think because I'm so not used to it, I really, really hate it. So they need to be like strapped down at all costs. And those sports bras have definitely done that. So yeah, I'll pop them in the description box. If you are having a boob job or if you have bigger boobs, I definitely recommend using them, especially for running. A lot of people were asking, how do they look now? Am I happy with them? Do they look how I wanted them? I genuinely could not have drawn myself better boobs. I know that probably sounds really up myself, but what I mean is in terms of I got exactly what I asked for. My surgeon literally handcrafted me the boobs of my dreams. In terms of I wanted a bit more cleavage, I wanted a bit more fullness at the top, but I still wanted them to look like my boobs, just fuller. And yeah, I'm so happy with them. I honestly cannot recommend him enough. Again, I will relink his Instagram and pop his Instagram here, because I just could not fault the whole thing. Looking back now, I am so grateful I went for him and not for anyone else. Again, just kind of talking about like everyday things. Somebody was asking, can I lie on my front and apply pressure to them? So yeah, again, this was a question that I really had, because I'd never really like known anyone with breast implants, and I didn't also want to ask someone like, can you lie on your stomach, because I didn't know if that just sounded silly. But when I had them done, you're suddenly like, well, I'm never gonna be able to lie on my stomach again because they're so sore and tender and things like that. But I can lie fully on my front now. They feel completely normal. The one like funny thing was when I went to a spa in Cheshire, because I wanted to go for a back massage, they actually had a boob hole so they could lower down a section where you put your boobs. I think it's probably because so many women in Cheshire have their boobs done. But yeah, it's completely normal. I can lie on my front, I can apply pressure to them. They just feel exactly like normal boobs now. We are actually getting to the end of the Q&A. I feel like I've literally flown through these. Somebody did ask, what would you say or do differently if you could go back? For me, I think the main thing I would do is maybe go back and kind of tell myself to relax. One thing that I did have that I will tell you guys about, and I didn't want to talk about it at the time because it really freaked me out, was for quite a long time I had quite bloodshot eyes. Like I'd wake up and they were really bloodshot and I had to go and take eye drops loads. And if you Google bloodshot eyes after a boob job, the first thing that comes up is like, it's a massive sign of breast implant illnesses, you're allergic to your implants. And I did research that and find that, and it really panics me for quite a long time. I never put anything about it on social media because I was kind of worried about people scaremongering and saying that it was the case, and I just kind of wanted to almost like let myself settle and see whether they kind of went back to normal by themselves. So I went and got some really good eye drops, and I just took eye drops and I was absolutely fine. And they are now back to normal. But if anybody is experiencing that, obviously if you are super worried, please go and talk to your surgeon. Looking back on it now, I wish I could tell myself to calm down, because I just had a major surgery. My body was healing from the inside. That was obviously just a symptom of that. My body was obviously extremely tired. I was constantly pretty fatigued because I was in that recovery process, and I think that was just a sign of that, having like dry and sore eyes. But yeah, they're completely back to normal now. But that was just something that even when I kind of looked up whether other people had that, I couldn't see anyone talking about it. So if anybody is experiencing that, please don't panic, because that is something that I did really panic over. But again, that's why I wish I could kind of go back and tell myself to relax a little bit as well. I got really freaked out about flying, so that's another thing I wish I could tell myself to relax about. When I went on my first holiday, I kind of got to the airport and suddenly had this like thought like, oh God, like what if they explode because of the pressure? And then I didn't want to Google it, and I started to kind of like spiral and overthink it, because I didn't want to Google it because I didn't want to see a horror story of that happening to someone. I did actually Google it after I landed, and it basically said that like the chance of that happening are like 0. Like it's not a thing that actually happens. It was obviously just something that I made up in my head. But for that whole flight, I was really panicked. I just couldn't stop thinking about it the whole time. It wasn't a very enjoyable flight, to say the least, but Again, I wish I could go back and just tell myself to relax a little bit and be a bit more rational. I think that's just something to do with me and kind of like health anxiety and health panics that I do kind of get sometimes. I do let myself spiral into these pits of like, oh my God, the worst is gonna happen, when that really isn't the case. And the final question that somebody asked was, how do you feel about getting them replaced? So obviously with breast implants, you typically don't have them forever. You do have to get them replaced every 10 years, they do say. That was actually something I spoke to my surgeon about, and he just basically said, not necessary 100% of the time. I need to go for a scan in 5 years and just have a scan, see where they're up to, see how they're healing, see all of that kind of stuff. Then again, in another 5 years, they then assess if you do need them replacing, because not all the time you do. But now I've kind of been through the experience and I've got the reward of knowing how much more confident I feel, knowing how much I love them. That isn't really something that affects me or plays on my mind as much. It's just kind of one of those things that I knew that when I made this decision, and if that's something that has to happen, I've consciously made that choice of knowing that that could be the case. So it's just something that I'm gonna have to get on with and have done if I still wanna have the same results of having fuller, bigger boobs. So that is the majority of the questions that you guys asked. Hopefully I did answer everything. Again, as always, if there's anything I've missed, please pop a comment in the comments box and I will get back to you. But I hope this has been helpful. Like I said, I have linked that initial boob job video, so go and have a look at that one if you are worrying about price, surgeons, how I found my surgeon, and even like recovery in the first kind of like initial 6 weeks and stuff, because that's what I cover in that video. But I hope you guys have enjoyed. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.